If you're looking to buy a stacked NBA 2K account with max badges and more, visit sportstmb.com. He has been in the community for years and has hundreds of reviews. Click the first link in the description to get your account today.
Hey, I moved. This set is only like 60% established. I don't even know for sure if I'm going to be keeping the chair in the corner like this. It might look weird. I'll only know once I start to edit this. I guess we'll see. But also, if you enjoy this video, there are many more like it to come and many more like it already on this channel. So please subscribe for more NBA content like this. I just hit 60,000 subs, which is really cool and I really appreciate that. So thanks a lot. But on to the video. So the All-Star selections were just made, and I think it's pretty fair to say that there was some controversy that came with that. Noted players like Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Zach LaVine did not make the team, and Trey Young was selected as an all-star starter. Now, the reason I put those 4 players in one group is because they all have a certain narrative going around their names right now, or at least 3 of them. That narrative really only applies to Bradley Beal for this season. That never happened prior. Bradley Beal and Devin Booker did not make the All-Star game, with both averaging over 27 points per game for the first time in a very long time in NBA history. The reason for this is that they are on losing teams. Now flip that on its head and go over to Trey Young in Atlanta. There is a whole new controversy because he not only made the All-Star team, but he was a starter. The reason that people had a problem with Trey being a starter is because Trey supposedly puts up empty stats, just like the other 3 guys that I've mentioned. And that, my friends, is bullshit. Pure and utter bullshit. The idea of empty stats is not something that's new, and it's not a term that I think shouldn't exist at all, like true point guard, which should not exist, but that's a whole nother topic for a different video. The thing that annoys me about the empty stats narrative is not that it exists, but rather that it is way overused. Devin Booker, Zach LaVine, Bradley Beal, and Trey Young do not put up empty stats, and I'm going to prove that in this video and talk about why that narrative is overused.
Absolutely incredibly with the acrobatic alley-oop.
I'm going to be going over this case by case, and let's start with the most controversial, the guy who made the All-Star team and made the thumbnail, Trey Young. Trey this year is putting up 29-9 on 60% true shooting percentage. Now, it is common to see people look at that 29-9 average and say, oh, he's only scoring that much because he is on a bad team. At a certain point, someone has to shoot the ball, and if you're on a trash team, if you're just a decent player, you're probably going to get most of the shots. So, you'll average a lot of points. Well, here's the thing. That makes sense in a certain and rare context, but it doesn't in this one. Trey Young has the same shooting percentage of 60% true shooting as Luka Doncic. Now, if he was shooting 40% from the field and 32% from 3, there's an argument that those numbers are empty, and I'd even agree with that. If he was shooting horribly and averaging 29, then yeah, that really is just a product of the shots having to go to somebody. But when a player is putting up these kind of numbers on phenomenal efficiency, they're not empty. It takes a lot of skill to average nearly 30 on 60% true shooting percentage. You can't bullshit that. You can't be a bad or even average player and just do that. Averaging that is impressive in any context. Now, on a team with better help and more offensive talent, yeah, Trey might not average 29 points because there would be less shots for him, maybe more like 25. But that doesn't make his averages any less impressive, and he probably could still average around 29 on a good team, because a lot of the problem with teams like these 2020 Hawks is that the shots that aren't going to Trey are going to a bunch of bums who brick all of their damn shots. Like, replace this Hawks young core with some more established talent, a second perimeter creator, a center who can grab some rebounds, and Trae could still be shooting as much as he does and the Hawks would be a good team. Also, there's something to be said for being able to score at that efficient of a rate with a bad team, considering the fact that the defense is going to be paying more attention to Trey Young, whereas if he was on a good team, he wouldn't have to try as hard to score. I am not a big fan of advanced stats. I'm not entirely dismissive of them. I'm not an entirely eye test guy. I think that's an extreme. I'm not going to entirely dismiss you if you use advanced stats in your argument. I will if it's your only argument. However, one time I had a guy on Twitter argue that Nikola Vucevic is a better player than Kevin Durant because of PER. Like, come on, dude. What annoys me about advanced stats is when people apply them like they do not need context, like they're the end-all be-all. They need just as much context as any normal box score number. But when you have someone in Trey Young who is on a 13-win team, who has a plus 5.2 plus minus and a plus 7.5 offensive plus minus, that is a legit advanced stat. You would think in the context of his team he would be in the negative, but no, he is a plus 5. This is a legit advanced stat. When Trae is in the game, the Hawks are a winning team. When he is out, they are not. It is that simple. Now, you could say that the reason that Trae has such a high plus minus is because his team is so trash, but that's kind of my point. If you're on a team with 13 wins and you have a plus 5 plus minus, your stats are not empty. There are stars in the NBA right now on much better teams with even 20 more wins that have a lower plus minus. Kemba Walker has a plus 4.5 on a 33-15 Boston Celtics team, with Brad Wanamaker as his backup. No disrespect to Brad, but he is far from the best backup point guard in the league. Jimmy Butler, who is also on a 33-15 team, has a 5.3 plus minus, just 0.1 better than Trae. Malcolm Brogdon has just a 1.5 plus minus. Paul George has a plus 3.5. Donovan Mitchell has a plus 1.7. CP3 has a plus 4.6. You get the damn point. Trae's numbers cannot be empty when he has a better plus minus than many established stars on teams with 20 plus more wins than his team has. Now let's move on to LaVine, Booker, and Beal. These three are in their own category because they all play the same position. They all have a generally similar play style. They all did not make the All-Star team, and they're also all not as good as Trey Young. I'm not going to go as in-depth with these three as I did with Trae because I talked about Trae for a while here. But again, let's take this case by case. LaVine, in my opinion, is the worst of these four players. Oh wow, I'm such a biased Bulls fan. I don't think there's as big of a difference between Booker and LaVine as people like to say, but still Booker is a better player. But even with that, what LaVine has in common with everyone here is that he is on a bad team with a positive plus minus. Now his isn't as ridiculous as Trey Young's because Trey's an a lot better player, both as a scorer and obviously as a distributor. But on a 19-win Chicago Bulls team, Zach, who is averaging 25, 5, and 4 on 57% true shooting percentage, has a plus 1.7 plus minus, which is the second best on his team just behind Daniel Gafford, who hasn't played even a third of the minutes that Zach has. So those numbers are not empty. Now, an important piece of context was that in previous years, he has been either neutral or negative. And this year, being on a slightly better team, only slightly, but still, has definitely helped that. But as I said earlier, I also don't think that advanced stats are the end-all be-all. There can be a certain point where fringe all-star level players like Zach LaVine are not good enough to carry a trash roster because he's just not that guy. It's why he had a neutral plus-minus last year. Not saying any of these guys are superstars at the moment. They don't have that level of talent that they can transcend having a terrible team. But I think if you can have a positive plus-minus on a bad team, that is a big ol' sign that you are not an empty stats player. Now let's talk about Bradley Beal and Devin Booker because I think these guys are pretty similar. both talent-wise and, more importantly, because they're in pretty damn similar situations. Booker and Beal are both averaging 28 and 6. Booker is a bit more efficient than Beal, but the difference isn't substantial. But once again, both of these players are a positive in the plus-minus on these shitty teams. These 4 players are on bad teams. That is not on them. It's bad enough that they have to deal with shit teammates, or more so in Zach LaVine's case, the worst coach in the history of basketball, Jim Boylan. I don't know if you've heard, I'm not a huge fan. It's bad enough that these players have these problems, but then to have them be dismissed as empty stats guys and being robbed of the individual accolade of being an all-star because of their situation just rubs it in even more. Now, to get to the broader point of the concept of empty stats. Are empty stats a thing? Yes. However, it is way less prevalent than people make it out to be, and the understanding of it needs a shift. What shooting percentage? On top of the plus minus, another great thing to look for context is the percentage. What is this player shooting? Like Trae has a 60% true shooting percentage, Devin Booker has a 63% true shooting percentage, and LaVine and Beal both have a 57% true shooting percentage. Those are all efficient players. If Zach and Beal and Booker and Trae were averaging like 25 points per game on 40-30 shooting splits, then yeah, they're empty stats. But they don't do that. If you are looking for an empty stats player, there are a few examples. Keyword there being few. Probably the most prominent one in history that I can think of is Jerry Stackhouse, who averaged 30 points in 2001 on the Detroit Pistons, but shot just 40% as a 6'6 player. Dude was really benefiting from being the only player who could create his own shot. Really, he's always been like that. For his career, he shoots just 41%. A great example of empty stats would be Michael Carter-Williams from his rookie year, where he averaged a seemingly really good 17, 6, and 6, but he shot 40, 26, 70 from the field. Those are some empty ass stats. Andrew Wiggins, not from this year, but the past few years prior, 18 points on 41% shooting in the 2018-19 season. And this is me reaching for examples because this just isn't all too common. There might be players who might not be best for winning because of other flaws in their game, like Zach LaVine and Trey Young defensively, and really all of these guys defensively. But the concept of empty numbers really should only go to someone seriously miscast into a role when they're definitely just not that kind of guy. It takes skill to do what these guys are doing. You can't bullshit averaging 28 points per game. It takes skill to do what these guys are doing. You can't bullshit averaging 25 to 29 points per game on good efficiency. It's not something that you can fake. You can bullshit being a good defender. I do it when I play all the time. You can bullshit hustle even. Just fall on the floor and suddenly you can hustle. But what you cannot bullshit is scoring. The shot either goes in or it doesn't. That's the end of it. What's unfortunate for the franchises that have these kind of players is that it's probably going to take these guys being traded to a halfway decent team for people to appreciate their talents. Putting up numbers on a bad team does not make those numbers empty. You're just on a shit team. But anyways, that's the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.